You know, there's a peculiar kind of suffering that nobody talks about, not the suffering of ignorance, which everyone recognizes, but the suffering of premature understanding. The pain of seeing the truth before you're ready for it, before you have the strength to hold it, before the world around you is willing to acknowledge it. And I want to suggest to you today that this might be one of the most isolating experiences a human being can have. Now, we're taught to believe that truth is always liberating, that knowledge is always power, that seeing clearly is always better than living in illusion. But this isn't quite accurate, is it? Because truth has its season, understanding has its timing, and when you see something too soon, when you wake up before everyone else, when you perceive what others are still comfortable ignoring, you don't feel liberated, you feel cursed. Have you ever been the only person in a room who could see that something was terribly wrong? Perhaps in your family, you were the child who noticed that your parents' marriage was a performance, a hollow shell of what they pretended it was. Everyone else was playing along, accepting the illusion, and there you were, perhaps 8 or 10 years old, seeing through it all, and you couldn't unsee it. You couldn't go back to the comfortable blindness that everyone else enjoyed. Or maybe at work, you were the one who saw that the project was doomed, that the company was heading toward disaster, that the leadership had no idea what they were doing. But when you tried to speak up, you weren't thanked for your insight. You were labeled as negative, as not a team player, as someone who didn't understand the bigger picture. The truth you saw was too threatening, too early, too uncomfortable for others to accept. This is what I mean by the pain of seeing too soon. You become like Cassandra in the Greek myth, blessed with the ability to see the future, but cursed never to be believed. You see the truth, but the truth isolates you. It separates you from the collective dream that everyone else is still comfortable dreaming. Let me tell you what happens when you see the truth too soon. First, you experience a kind of grief. Because once you see something clearly, you lose the comfort of the illusion. And illusions are comfortable. They're cozy. They allow you to fit in, to belong, to feel safe in the shared delusion of your community, your family, your society. When you see through the illusion, you're suddenly alone. You're standing outside the warm circle of collective unconsciousness, looking in at people who seem content in their blindness. And part of you wishes desperately that you could go back, that you could unsee what you've seen, that you could rejoin the comfortable dream, but you can't. That door has closed. The second thing that happens is that you begin to doubt yourself, because if you're the only one seeing what you're seeing, maybe you're wrong, maybe you're crazy, maybe you're making it all up. The collective agreement of everyone around you that the illusion is real becomes a kind of tyranny. It makes you question your own perceptions, your own sanity, your own grip on reality. I've watched people go through this. They see something clearly, something true, something that needs to be acknowledged. But everyone around them denies it, minimizes it, explains it away, and slowly the person who saw the truth begins to wonder if they're the problem, if their perception is distorted, if they're too sensitive, too negative, too critical, too intense. This is a form of madness, you understand. Not the madness of the person seeing the truth, but the madness of a world that calls truth-seeing a disorder. We live in a collective hallucination, and anyone who points this out is labeled as disturbed. The sane person in an insane world appears insane. The person with clear vision in a world of the blind is called delusional. Now, here's where it gets interesting. There are different kinds of truth that one can see too soon. Let me walk you through them, because each carries its own particular flavor of suffering. First, there's the truth about other people. You see through someone's mask, their persona, their carefully constructed identity. You see the fear beneath their confidence, the neediness beneath their independence, the manipulation beneath their generosity, and you can't help but see it. It's right there, obvious as daylight to you, but they're not ready to acknowledge it, and everyone around them is still buying the performance. What do you do with this knowledge? If you speak it, you become the villain. You're attacking them, exposing them, being cruel. If you stay silent, you're complicit in the lie, and you begin to feel like a fraud yourself. Either way, you're trapped. The truth you see too soon becomes a burden you must carry alone. Second, there's the truth about systems and structures. You see that the education system isn't really about learning, that the medical system isn't really about healing, That the political system isn't really about representing people. That the economic system isn't really about prosperity for all. You see the machinery behind the curtain, the way these systems serve certain interests while pretending to serve everyone. And when you try to point this out, you're told you're being cynical, negative, unpatriotic, ungrateful. You're told that if you don't like it, you should leave. You're told that you're oversimplifying, that things are more complicated than you understand. But you do understand. That's the problem. You understand too well, too soon, and nobody wants to hear it. Third, there's the truth about existence itself. This is perhaps the most profound and the most painful. You see through the game of life, the elaborate pretense that what we're doing matters in some ultimate sense. You see the absurdity of it all, the cosmic joke, the fact that we're finite creatures clinging to infinite concerns, temporary beings obsessed with permanence, dying animals pretending to be immortal souls. This insight can hit you at any age. Sometimes it comes to children who suddenly realize that everyone they love will die, that nothing lasts, that the whole enterprise of human life is a brief flicker in an unimaginably vast and indifferent universe. For a child to see this is devastating. They don't have the philosophical framework to hold it, to work with it, to find the strange freedom that can eventually come from this recognition. So what happens to people who see the truth too soon? Let me tell you what I've observed. Some of them break. The weight of seeing what others don't see, of being awake in a sleeping world, it's too much. They turn to substances, to addictions, to anything that will blur their vision, that will allow them to unsee what they've seen. They choose unconsciousness because consciousness has become unbearable. Others become bitter. They turn their premature understanding into a weapon. They use it to feel superior, to judge others, to separate themselves from the blind masses. They become cynical, hardened, contemptuous. Their early wisdom curdles into a kind of poison. They saw the truth too soon, and instead of waiting for others to catch up, they decided to punish them for being behind. Some become evangelists of the truth, desperately trying to wake everyone else up. They can't bear being alone in their understanding, so they try to force their vision on others. They become loud, insistent, annoying. They think they're helping, but really, they're trying to ease their own isolation by creating companions in their awareness. But you cannot force someone to see what they're not ready to see. All you do is make them defensive, resistant, more entrenched in their illusions. But there's another way, a fourth path, and it's the narrow one. It's the path of patience, of sitting quietly with what you know, allowing others to remain asleep until they naturally wake up. This requires tremendous strength. It means being okay with being different, with seeing differently, with knowing things that others don't know. It means not needing to be validated by the crowd, not needing others to confirm your perceptions. This is what I call bearing witness to the truth, not proclaiming it, not weaponizing it, not using it to feel superior, just holding it, quietly, patiently, knowing that truth has its own timing, its own way of revealing itself when the conditions are right. But let me be clear, this isn't easy. There's a real cost to seeing the truth too soon. You pay for it in loneliness. You pay for it in the sense of being fundamentally different from those around you. You pay for it in the exhaustion of constantly translating between your reality and the consensus reality that everyone else inhabits. And here's something nobody tells you. Sometimes you will be wrong. Sometimes what you think is truth is just your own projection, your own fear, your own limited perspective. The danger of seeing clearly is that you can become arrogant about it. You can become so convinced of your own perception that you stop questioning it, stop testing it against reality, stop remaining open to the possibility that you might be missing something. So how do you know? How do you distinguish between genuine insight and self-deception? Between seeing the truth and seeing your own shadow? This is the razor's edge that the early seer must walk. And the answer is, you remain humble. You hold your insights lightly. You acknowledge that you might be wrong, even as you trust your perceptions. You stay open, flexible, willing to be corrected by reality itself. Let me give you an image. Seeing the truth too soon is like being born in the wrong era. Imagine being someone who understood that slavery was wrong, but you lived in a time when slavery was normal, accepted, considered natural by everyone around you. Your insight would be correct, but it would also be deeply alienating. You would be surrounded by good people, decent people, who were participating in something you could clearly see was evil, and they would think you were the crazy one. This has happened throughout history. The truth seers are usually rejected by their contemporaries and celebrated by later generations. But that later celebration doesn't help you when you're living through the rejection. It doesn't ease the loneliness of being awake in a sleeping world. So what do you do if you're someone who sees the truth too soon? First, you must grieve. Grieve the loss of innocence, the loss of belonging, the loss of the comfortable illusions that others still enjoy. Don't skip this step. Don't pretend you're fine with being different. Feel the pain of it. Honor the cost of your awareness. Second, you must find your people. They exist, you know. Other early seers, other ones who woke up before it was time. They're scattered, hidden, often quiet about what they see. But when you find them, when you meet another person who sees what you see, there's a recognition, a relief, a sense of coming home. You realize you're not crazy after all. You're not alone. There are others walking this narrow path. Third, you must develop what I call transparent patience. This means being clear in your own seeing while being patient with others' blindness. It means not dumbing yourself down to fit in, but also not using your insight as a weapon. It means living your truth quietly, allowing it to radiate from you without forcing it on anyone. And here's what's beautiful about this. When you stop trying to convince people, when you stop needing them to see what you see, something shifts. Your very presence becomes an invitation. People sense that you're awake in a way they're not. And some of them, the ones who are ready, will become curious. They'll start asking questions. They'll begin their own journey toward the truth you saw too soon. But you must be willing to let others stay asleep. This is crucial. Some people are not ready to wake up. Some people will never be ready in this lifetime. And that's their right. Your premature awareness doesn't give you the authority to disturb their sleep. You can offer the truth, but you cannot force it on anyone. Now let me tell you the deepest truth about seeing the truth too soon. It's a kind of preparation. When you see something before others see it, you have time to integrate it, to work with it, to understand it deeply before the rest of the world catches up. And eventually, the world does catch up. The truth you saw at 8 years old, everyone else might see at 30. The systemic dysfunction you perceived at 20, society might acknowledge at 50. When this happens, when the collective finally sees what you saw long ago, you're already beyond it. You've already processed it, worked through it, found your way of living with it. You become a kind of scout, someone who's traveled the territory ahead of the group and can help guide others when they finally arrive. This is the hidden gift in the curse of premature seeing. You suffer the loneliness of early awareness, but you gain the depth that comes from sitting with truth for a long time. You're forced to develop inner resources, inner strength, inner clarity, because you can't rely on external validation. The truth you see is your companion in a way that those who see it later, when everyone else sees it too, can never experience. So yes, there is pain in seeing the truth too soon, real pain. The pain of isolation, of self-doubt, of being misunderstood and rejected. But there is also dignity in it. There is integrity in it. You refused to lie to yourself even when lying would have been more comfortable. You chose clarity over belonging. You honored what you saw even when no one else could see it. And perhaps most importantly, you learned something that most people never learn. That truth doesn't require consensus to be true. That reality doesn't care whether people acknowledge it or not. That your perception doesn't need to be validated by the crowd to be valid. This is a hard-won wisdom. It costs you the comfort of conformity, but it gives you something more valuable, self-trust. When you've been the only one seeing something true, and you've watched others deny it, minimize it, explain it away, and then finally, years later, come around to acknowledging it, you learn to trust your own perception. You learn that you can see clearly even when everyone else is blind. But here's the paradox, and this is important. The more you trust your own perception, the more humble you must become, because you also learn that being able to see one truth doesn't mean you can see all truths. That being right about one thing doesn't make you right about everything. that clarity in one area of life doesn't equal clarity in all areas. The person who sees the truth too soon and becomes arrogant about it has missed the deeper lesson. The real teaching is not that you're special for seeing what others miss. The real teaching is that we're all blind in different ways. We're all seeing through different veils, and the person who's awake to one truth is usually asleep to another. So the mature response to seeing the truth too soon is not superiority but compassion. Compassion for yourself, for the burden you carry, and compassion for others who are carrying their own burdens, their own truths, their own awakenings in their own time. Let me end with this. If you're someone who sees the truth too soon, you're going to feel different from others. You're going to feel alone sometimes. You're going to wonder if there's something wrong with you. But let me tell you, there's nothing wrong with you. You're simply awake in an area where others are still sleeping. And that's okay. It doesn't make you better or worse. It makes you a scout, a pioneer, a canary in the coal mine. Your job is not to wake everyone up. Your job is not to convince anyone of anything. Your job is simply to stay true to what you see, to live in alignment with your truth, and to remain open and compassionate toward those who see differently. That's all. That's enough. The pain of seeing the truth too soon is real, but it's also temporary, because truth has a way of revealing itself in its own time to everyone who's ready for it. Your early seeing was your path, your curriculum, your particular way of learning what you needed to learn. Others will learn the same truths on different timelines, in different ways. And one day, maybe many years from now, someone will come to you and say, "You know what I just realized?" And they'll tell you something you saw decades ago. And your job in that moment is not to say, "I knew that all along." Your job is to say, "Yes, isn't that interesting?" And to welcome them into the awareness you've been holding alone for so long. Because in the end, we're all waking up together, just at different speeds. Some of us see the dawn while it's still dark for others. But eventually the sun rises for everyone. Your early seeing doesn't make you special. It makes you a companion to the truth, walking ahead of the crowd but never separate from it, always part of the same human family, the same consciousness, waking up to itself through countless eyes. The pain of seeing the truth too soon is the price of admission to a deeper life, a more authentic existence. You pay for it in loneliness, but you gain something priceless, the knowledge that you can trust yourself, that you can stand in your truth even when everyone else is standing elsewhere, that you don't need the world's permission to see what's real. And that, my friends, is its own kind of freedom, a freedom that those who never see anything too soon, who always wait for the crowd to tell them what's true, can never quite understand. It's the freedom of the pioneer, the scout, the early riser who watches the dawn alone and knows, with quiet certainty, that the day is coming for everyone.